I think my body was probably shaking a little bit, and out came all of this stuck, deadening energy from my heart and lungs. And needless to say, the next day I felt amazingly better, and my bronchitis just cleared up straight away. Hi, I'm Shakti Durga. Welcome to Mystery School, ancient wisdom for everyday life. A space where we explore the sacred, awaken inner knowledge, solve problems, and learn to live from the divine within. Hello, I'm Shakti Durga, and I would like to talk to you about igniting your spirit. Igniting your spirit is something that any of us can do. And what am I talking about? I'm talking about how it is that life can drain our sense of possibility, our sense of vitality or hope in the future. We can feel dejected and deflated. And let's face it, there's a lot going on in the world at the moment. There's a lot of things that we may worry about. There's a lot of things that we give our energy to. All of us are busy. All of us are juggling. We're looking after children or aging parents, or, trying to pay the mortgage at the same time as we're trying to keep up with inflation and all of the things that exert pressure on us. And sometimes we manage to do all the doing that we have to do, but slowly and surely our vital energy is diminishing. When we get to a certain point in the diminution of our own energy, then what will happen is that we'll either feel depressed, we'll get anxious, or perhaps a disease process can start. Having been involved in metaphysics now for many, many years, I've seen a number of people who have been able to avoid big problems by having some energy healing to ignite their spirit and turn the volume back up on their own energy when they were at risk of really burning out or having chronic conditions. I myself got into energy healing not because I had any particular interest in getting into it, but I got sick, I got bronchitis and had it for 6 months, and I had all kinds of antibiotics, I had all kinds of treatment, but nothing would shift this very severe bronchitis. It was interfering with my sleeping, it was interfering with my energy, and basically I was a bit of a mess, and I was trying to balance a busy career and the needs of a small child at the same time. And my gorgeous daughter wasn't yet at school, so it was a fairly full-on load. And someone said to me, you know what, you should try energy healing. And I thought, oh, well, maybe. And I did. I went along and tried, and the lady said to me, have you had a lot of grief? And I thought, well, I went through a marriage breakup, but I'm not really in touch with feeling any grief. She said, well, as I sense into your lungs, I'm really sensing the presence of grief in a really big way. And my rational mind was busy saying, well, you're wrong, because I couldn't feel it, when all of a sudden this wave of grief started coming out of my chest, and it all kind of hemorrhaged out of me, this sense of grief and emotion. I cried, and, I think my body was probably shaking a little bit. And out came all of this stuck, deadening energy from my heart and lungs. And needless to say, the next day I felt amazingly better, and my bronchitis just cleared up straight away. And I couldn't believe that some lady who'd been waving her hands around and felt that I had something that I couldn't feel myself in my own body had been able to relieve me of something that had been a problem for so long. And I thought to myself, I either have to pretend it didn't happen because it's way outside my belief system that something like this could happen, or I've really got to seriously have a look at my belief system. I've got to have a look at how on earth did she do that? How did that happen? So at that time in my life, in the early 1990s, I was already a regular meditator. I'd already started looking at personal development and things like that. I'd done a few courses of this and that. And I was really drawn to go and study. So I studied pranic healing and Reiki and a number of things. And I was just amazed at how one could feel what was going on in another person's energy field when you didn't know them. And I didn't think of myself as a healer. I was a lawyer. I didn't think that I would ever be able to give anybody a healing and that anything valuable or practical would happen from that. But lo and behold, as I received training and as I practiced, I found that in fact loads of stuff would happen during the healing process, way beyond anything I ever dreamed or imagined. And as a young mum, I found it incredibly helpful to have skills as a healer that I could use to help my children, who, I don't know if anyone else has this with their kids, but my kids always got sick in the middle of the night. You know, not at a convenient time like the middle of the afternoon where it's much easier to go and get them treated. And so I had this kind of first aid kit in my hands, in a sense that if they had fevers or they had pain or they had a tummy ache or something, you know, as a first port of call, I could give them a healing. And very often that was all that they needed. And maybe one or two healings, maybe three, and they would be well again. But in the old days, before I'd had those skills, I probably would have been packing them up in the car and taking them into the emergency department at all hours of the night just to check out that there wasn't anything seriously wrong with them. So that was my story of how I got involved with this. Recently, it's given me great delight to see that there are a number of quality documentaries coming online about energy healing, and that many more people are open to trying this amazing way of looking after your energy field. But there are people who have questions about it, and I thought today I'd like to address some of the questions that sometimes get raised. The first question is, does it work for everybody? Well, I would say that everybody has an energy field and everybody has vital energy, and everybody can from time to time suffer from a diminution in their vital energy. And if that's the case, then energy healing is likely to do something that's beneficial. Whether it will work in an individual case can depend on factors such as how bad is the condition, how serious is it, and how long has the person had it for? How old is the person? You know, if you've got a 96-year-old suffering from heart failure, is energy healing going to fix that person? I very much doubt that, because their body's worn out. You know, they're reaching the end of their life and nothing's really going to help them. But for a younger person, I've seen miraculous healing take place, and the heart is one of the organs that seems to be very amenable actually to having energy healing, because it's amazing how often all of us will store emotional energy in that particularly sensitive organ. And when we clear it out, and particularly if the energy healing has if the healer has some shamanic training as well, then many different levels and layers of what might be going on for that person that's impacting their heart can be cleared away. I remember one lady that I gave a healing to who had a very serious heart condition and caused arrhythmia in her heart. It was so bad that no arrhythmia medication would work for her anymore. She'd been on medication for a long time, but it had stopped working. The surgeons were saying, look, with all the things you've got going on, we think that your life expectancy is very short if you don't have a healing. And if you do have the surgery that we want you to have, then we think that perhaps you've only got a 50-50 chance of surviving the surgery. So you're not going to live if you don't have the surgery, but if you do have the surgery, it's still not a great story. So this person came to me in a bit of a panic, as you can imagine. And when I tuned in to her heart, I saw that in a past life, she had been in a war situation where she had died from shrapnel wounds, and she had loads and loads of small, sharp objects, like from an explosion or something, that had penetrated her chest and lodged within the heart area and the chest cavity. and she was riddled with these tiny little wounds, and it had caused her demise. So we did some forgiveness work for her around that last life, called her spirit back, cleaned things up, and at the same time, a load of dirty energy and stuck energy started pouring out of her heart chakra. She felt incredibly different. She cried. She released a lot of energy. She said that she had feelings of lightness, whereas before she'd felt exhausted and heavy in that area. And she went on to have the surgery and to have a phenomenal outcome from the surgery. In fact, the surgeon said he'd never seen anyone heal as quickly as she did post-surgery, and she had a perfect result. So she may have had that result anyway. You can never tell, but she was fairly convinced that the energy healing had really given her the edge, and that her life was completely changed by the fact that she'd been able to have energy healing to prepare herself for the surgery, and to have energy healing after the surgery as well, so that we could tidy up the after effects of things like general anesthesia and all of the trauma that any kind of surgery does to one's body. So that's just a story to illustrate that that woman is someone for whom the energy healing worked. She received other forms of healing as well. And one of the great things about energy healing is it's a fabulous adjunct to other forms of healing that are more traditional, such as surgery. But in terms of other situations, there are situations where energy healing will work provided you have sufficient healings. In this way, you could say energy healing is dose dependent in the same way as medication is. So if someone was doing a study on whether or not energy healing could assist a particular malady, and they only did one healing or one or two healings for someone with a serious condition, you may find that that is inadequate to be able to completely remedy the situation. You might find there's no statistical real measure of there being a benefit. For very serious conditions, for acute conditions, you need to have really regular energy healing, and that might be 2 or 3 healings a day for a couple of days, tailoring off to 1 healing a day, then tailing off to a healing per week, and just looking and monitoring about how that supports the person in their situation. And if the proper dose of energy healing is given, all kinds of miraculous things can happen. I know of people who have recovered from all kinds of wounds, car accidents, all kinds of situations with very regular energy healing, giving them miraculous outcomes in situations where the diagnosis from traditional medicine was you're probably not going to survive. So these things are pretty miraculous when you see them, but you do need to have a sufficient dosage. I mean, imagine if you wanted to control your blood pressure and your blood pressure was high and you just took 1 blood pressure tablet. Well, great, but that will help you today, but it won't help you tomorrow or the next day, and it's unlikely to get the condition under control. Similarly with energy healing. And by the way, blood pressure is one of those things that often is very, very amenable to help from energy healing. So that's one of the things we have to look at is dose dependency and how frequent the dose is. As I said before, we've got to look at also the seriousness of the condition and how long the person's had it for and their age. These are also factors. A third factor that is an important factor in any form of healing is, does the person have the karmic grace to recover from their illness? Now, you might say, well, this is just a belief system. You know, some people believe in karma, some people don't believe in karma. But it's really just the law of cause and effect. And we put certain causes out in the world. We do certain actions. We speak, we think. And then vibrationally, that has a particular charge. That vibration will come back to us again. So people who have more what you would call karmic grace, or that they've done a lot of helping others, they've been kind to others, they've been very altruistic people, they develop a lot of grace. And then when they need healing, there's a lot of grace for them to receive what they need. And I feel that unseen forces also help in that situation and empower the healers in the work. I remember a lady came to me once for help with her kidneys, and the doctors had told her she only had a very short time to live because of her deficiencies in her kidneys. And so I tried to give her a healing, but it just kept bouncing out of her. The energy wasn't doing anything. So I said to her, look, you need to go away and try and do some service work. Go and help someone. Doesn't matter if you're feeding people, doesn't matter if you're, doing anything at all that will be of benefit to others, and then come back and see me in a few weeks when you've been doing that. She wasn't thrilled with that advice, but she thought about it, and then she went away and she did that. She went and worked for a charity as much as she could, given her tiredness with her condition, but she was regular with her helping others. And then when she came back to see me, the same healing that I'd tried to do previously that really hadn't done anything, and I could see that it wasn't, it just went bam and completely changed the way her kidneys were operating. And she felt amazing, and she started to turn around. And then with regular healings, she was able to gain a lot of energy back again, and her quality of life gradually improved. And so while she still had the diagnosis of the problem, she didn't have the symptoms of the problem. And this is sometimes the way with energy healing, that you seem like you're great, but the diagnosis can still be there. But your quality of life is so important. And so we want that. So that's 3 factors we need to look at when we're looking at energy healing. How old is the person, and how chronic or severe, what stage has the illness reached? Like any kind of healing, any kind of intervention, the further along it is, the older the person, the more tricky it is to give the healing. Secondly is dose dependency, and thirdly is whether or not the person has the karmic grace for it. I would say that the 4th matter that is relevant to the success of energy healing is the healer themselves. Some healers have trained long and hard to become healers, and they have purified their own energy body. They've done a lot of training. They have access to a lot of techniques, but they also have access to inner wisdom and inner healing potency that flows from the infinite through that person to benefit the client. And the more developed your healer is, and the more they've done their own healing work, the more potent will be what they're capable of. And so it would be a good idea to try a few different healers for any condition that you might have, and find someone who you feel is really doing something that is so potent that something's happening. You're not sitting there thinking, well, I didn't feel anything, I don't feel any different. Go for someone who's got a reputation, go for someone who's got experience, and go for someone who's got runs on the board helping people. So those 4 factors might help you in understanding some of the parameters that are in existence around successful energy healing. Whatever your circumstance might be, with energy healing, you can feel better, you can be more vital, you can clear stuck emotion, you can speed up the rate at which your physical body will heal after trauma, misadventure, or surgery. Even after childbirth, it's fabulous to have some healings, both for the mother and for the baby, just to make sure that everything's going well, and to clear out any stress or trauma that may have occurred, because sometimes, let's face it, the birth process is pretty rough, both for the mum and for the baby. So that kind of support can be invaluable. It can also be important to have support, not just for health issues, but for life issues. For instance, a lot of my work is around helping people with relationship issues. And when relationships are going very badly, It can be amazing what happens when people have energy healing, not just for themselves, but also on their relationship. And we're able to perceive patterns that might be there. And with judicious counseling and spiritual healing, the person can be empowered to make changes within their relationship, and they can be taught energetic practices to help rectify their own energy so that they can show up in the relationship in a more pristine way, in a more wholesome way, in a more kind of mature and loving way. I've also seen energy healing be very successful to help people with career matters, and where businesses get stalled. Sometimes it can be very helpful for the business owners and stakeholders to have some energy healing and to have a look at where the blockages might be in the consciousness of the people running the business. And sometimes you can pick up amazing things in the business itself. So these are some of the marvelous things that can happen with energy healing. I've also found that animals love energy healing, and there's a lot of studies on the efficacy of energy healing for animals. And let's face it, they are not subject to the placebo effect, are they? And animals recover incredibly well because they don't have any resistance. They just accept, and they're grateful for all the help we can give them with their energy. They're much more in touch with their energy field, I think, than most humans are. So that's just a few ideas and a few ways to get the most out of your experience of energy healing. I'm Shakti Durga, and I will see you next time. And if you're interested in learning about energy healing, we have some wonderful seminars. We have Energy Healing Made Easy and Centers of Consciousness, as well as a very thorough and detailed practitioner level training that goes for a couple of years and takes people on a deep, amazing spiritual journey of transformation and empowerment. I'll see you next time. Bye-bye. Thanks for joining me for Mystery School, Ancient Wisdom for Everyday Life. For deeper experiential spiritual exploration, join me for Mystery School Living Light series, and for more information visit shantimission.org. See you next time.